The morning I realized I was falling in love with my neighbor, I burned the coffee, forgot to feed my cat, and showed up to teach Hamlet with my shirt inside out. None of my students mentioned it, which either meant they were being kind or they'd stopped expecting basic competence from the man who'd been grading their essays with a purple crayon for the past week. Love, it turns out, makes fools of English teachers just like everyone else. My name is James, and I am 43 years old. I teach high school English in Portland, Oregon, where the rain writes poetry on classroom windows and teenagers pretend they don't need tenderness. Until 3 months ago, I thought I knew the shape of my life. Small house, front porch, kitchen table that wobbles when I grade papers, and a solitude I'd grown comfortable with. Then Marcus moved in next door with his boxes of books and his quiet laugh, and everything I thought I understood about myself shifted like light through water. The morning we first spoke, I was watering the tomatoes I keep trying to grow in containers too small for their ambitions. The sun was fighting through clouds the way it does in September, and I could hear someone moving boxes on the other side of the fence. A voice said, "Excuse me." And when I looked up, there was a man with kind eyes and paint on his fingers, holding a coffee mug that read, "World's Okayest Teacher." "I'm Marcus," he said, extending a hand over the fence. "Your new neighbor. I teach 4th grade at Beaumont." His handshake was warm and brief. I liked the way he didn't hold on too long or let go too quickly. "James," I said. "Jefferson High, English department." We talked about the neighborhood, the coffee shop on the corner that burns everything but still draws a line every morning. He asked about my tomatoes with the genuine interest that tells you someone understands the small hopes we carry. When I mentioned they'd been struggling, he said, "Mine too." Maybe it's the containers. That afternoon, I found a book on my porch, Container Gardening for Beginners, with a note tucked inside the cover. Thought this might help. -M. I kept the note longer than was reasonable. Over the weeks that followed, we developed the gentle choreography that neighbors learn when they discover they like each other's company. Saturday mornings, we'd both appear in our gardens at roughly the same time, coffee in hand, and talk across the fence about lesson plans and weekend farmers market finds. He told me about his students, how 9-year-olds have no filter for wonder or heartbreak. I told him about mine, how 17-year-olds pretend Shakespeare is boring while secretly writing love letters in their margins. Marcus had a way of listening that made ordinary stories feel worth telling. When I mentioned grading papers until midnight, he brought me a thermos of tea the next evening. When his car wouldn't start one rainy Tuesday, I drove him to school without being asked. These small kindnesses accumulated like interest. The night everything changed, I was sitting on my porch reading by lamplight when the rain started. Not the gentle mist Portland specializes in, but real rain that meant business. I heard Marcus's door open and close, then footsteps on his porch. "Evening, James," he called through the downpour. "Evening," I called back, squinting through the gray curtain between us. "This is ridiculous," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "Want to share a porch? Mine has a better roof." I closed my book and ran the 15 feet between our houses, arriving breathless and soaked on his covered porch. He handed me a towel that smelled like lavender detergent. "Tea?" he offered, gesturing to a pot steaming on a small table. We sat in his porch swing, listening to rain drum the roof and watching the street blur into watercolor. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was full of things neither of us knew how to say yet. "Can I tell you something?" Marcus said eventually, his voice careful the way it gets when words matter. "Of course." "I moved here because I needed to start over," he said. "My partner and I broke up last year. Actually, that's not accurate. He left me for someone younger, and I spent 6 months pretending it didn't matter." I set my teacup down with too much precision. "I'm sorry." "I'm not asking for sympathy," he said quickly. "I'm just trying to be honest about why I'm here." and why I've been hoping you'd invite me over, or I'd find the courage to invite you." The rain gentled to a whisper. My heart did not. "Marcus," I started, then stopped because I didn't know how to finish the sentence. "You don't have to say anything," he said. "I just wanted you to know that these Saturday mornings have become the best part of my week. Your voice across the fence, the way you laugh at my terrible gardening jokes, the fact that you actually read the book I gave you." I looked at him then, really looked. The silver threading through his dark hair, the lines around his eyes that spoke of years of smiling at children, the paint under his fingernails that never quite washed away. This gentle man who had been living 15 feet away, close enough to hear my evening news through thin walls, far enough that I had to choose to close the distance. "I read it twice," I said, "and I've been watering those tomatoes every morning hoping you'd come outside." His smile was soft and surprised. "Really? Really? And Marcus, I've been single for 3 years. My last relationship ended quietly, the way some things do when people grow in different directions. I thought I was done with all this." "All what?" "Hoping someone would ask me over, listening for footsteps next door, buying extra groceries in case you stopped by." The rain had stopped completely now, leaving only the sound of water dripping from gutters and the distant hum of traffic on Sandy Boulevard. Marcus reached for my hand, his fingers still warm from holding his teacup. "Would you like to have dinner tomorrow?" he asked, not as neighbors being polite, but as two people who might want to see where this goes. "Yes," I said, because sometimes the simplest words carry the most weight. We had dinner the next night at a small Italian place where the owner knew everyone's name, and the wine was poured with generosity. Marcus told me about growing up in small-town Oregon, about becoming a teacher because his third-grade teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, had saved him from thinking he was stupid when he was really just dyslexic. I told him about my parents, who had taken longer than I hoped, but less than I feared to understand when I came out at 28. We walked home slowly, the way people do when they don't want an evening to end. At my front gate, he kissed me. It was careful and brief, a question and an answer at the same time. "Good night, James," he said. "Good night, Marcus." That was 3 months ago. Now Marcus keeps a toothbrush in my bathroom and I have a key to his house. We grade papers at the same kitchen table, him in his reading glasses that make him look scholarly, and me with my red pen that never seems to run dry. On Saturday mornings, we work in our gardens together, two men learning that love can grow in small spaces if you tend it carefully. Last week, my tomatoes finally produced a handful of perfect fruit. Marcus made them into a salad with basil from his herb garden, and we ate it on his porch while the September rain wrote new poems on the windows. We've developed our own rhythm now. Mornings begin with coffee shared across the fence before we both leave for our respective schools. Evenings find us grading papers at my kitchen table or reading on his porch swing. On weekends, we've claimed the corner booth at the diner on Hawthorne, where the waitress knows we both want our eggs over easy and the coffee refilled without asking. There are still moments when I catch myself surprised by the ease of it all. How Marcus's laugh has become the sound I listen for when I'm having a difficult day. How his hand finds mine during movies without either of us having to think about it. How he's memorized the way I like my tea, and I've learned that he hums under his breath when he's content. Last month, we took a weekend trip to the coast. We rented a small cabin in Cannon Beach and spent Saturday morning walking the shoreline, collecting smooth stones and watching dogs chase waves. That evening, as we sat by the fireplace reading our respective books, Marcus looked up and said, "This feels like something I want to keep doing." "What?" I asked, though I knew. "This, U.S., building a life that fits us both." I marked my page and set the book aside. I want that too. It wasn't a proposal or a grand declaration. It was simply two middle-aged men acknowledging that what we'd found together was worth protecting and nurturing. We talked that night about practical things. Whose lease was up first? whether we wanted to look for a place together or keep our separate houses with their shared fence. We talked about meeting each other's families, about the small integrations that turn separate lives into shared ones. The answer, we decided, didn't need to be immediate. We had time. This morning, I woke to the sound of Marcus in his garden, humming while he watered his herbs. My cat, Fitzgerald, was sitting on the windowsill watching him with the approval cats reserve for people who've proven themselves worthy. When Marcus noticed Fitz in the window, he waved and called, "Good morning, handsome," and I couldn't tell which of us he was addressing. I made coffee for two and stepped onto the porch. "Morning," I called. "Morning," he called back, already moving toward the fence with his own mug. We stood there in our respective robes, hair uncombed, sharing the quiet that comes before the world fully wakes. The tomatoes we'd both finally learned to grow properly were heavy with fruit. The rain that would come later was still just a promise in the gray clouds gathering over the hills. "I love you," Marcus said suddenly, simply, like he was commenting on the weather. It was the first time either of us had said it. "I love you too," I said back, and felt something settle into place in my chest, like furniture finally arranged the right way in a room. This is what I've learned. Love doesn't always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives quietly, like a neighbor with paint on his fingers and a book that might help, and builds itself one small kindness at a time. Sometimes it grows in the space between fence posts, in shared glances across Saturday morning gardens, in the simple recognition that the person 15 feet away has become essential to your understanding of home. The kitchen table still wobbles when I grade papers. The rain still turns Portland soft and gray. But now, when evening comes and I hear footsteps next door, I know they might be walking toward my door. And when Marcus knocks, I answer, because I've learned that the best stories begin not with once upon a time, but with, "Would you like to come in?" We're writing that story now, one quiet morning at a time.